Hey, good Sunday evening. Scott Luton and special guest co-host Allison Krache Giddens with us here on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to tonight's live stream. Allison, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. We were having a blast on a pre-show conversation. We should have recorded that whole most of that conversation maybe. But it's so neat to have you here with us. We've done so many different things together. This is the first time that we're interviewing someone else together and getting their story out. So this is going to be a blast.
This will be fun.
So on today's show, we're doing something first. We had this teed up a few months back. And then, of course, in the crazy year that 2020 was, we had to reschedule and fine tune some things. We are going way off road. So Allison, you've been a guest of ours in the past, here at Supply Chain Now. It's usually about, guess what? Supply chain, right?
Logistics. Who would have guessed it?
Manufacturing, you name it, end-to-end supply chain. Always about leadership, though. But today, we're kind of letting our hair down a little bit. We're going to be talking sports, and we're going to be talking sports with Joe Valentine, a former Major League Baseball professional. So, Allison, are you ready for a great conversation?
Let's do this. It's 36 days until pitchers catchers report, right? 36? Is that what we're looking at?
I think you, man.
Who's counting? Who's counting?
How many hours? How many minutes?
That would be, let's see, carry the one. I don't remember.
Well, it's neat as fellow Atlanta Braves fans to finally be looking forward to that next season. There's a couple of years there where, whoo boy, as we were rebuilding, but man, there's so much good stuff going on with the Braves.
Yes.
All right. So quick programming note. We're going to say hello to a few folks. Quick programming note before we bring on Joe Valentine. If you enjoyed today's conversation, especially the supply chain aspect to it, hey, make sure you check out our podcast, wherever you get your podcast from. Subscribe for free so you don't miss conversations just like this one. All right. So let's say hello to a couple of folks here. Sneha, who is a supply chain practitioner out there. Hope this finds you well. Great to have you here. Sneha, hopefully you like baseball. Allison, what do you think? On a scale of 1 to 10.
You know what? If she doesn't, she's going to after this.
That's right. Hopefully this finds you well, though. Great to have you. Eric tuned in from Ecuador via LinkedIn. Great to have you here today. Nairobi, great to have you back via LinkedIn. Also a supply chain practitioner, I think in the transportation industry, if I'm not mistaken. Great to have you back here, Nairobi. All right. So no further ado, let's bring in our featured guest here today. This evening, Sunday evening, as we got football taking place. Joe Valentine, former pitcher in Major League Baseball and current senior sales executive with RLG Americas. Hey, Joe, how you doing?
Good, Scott. How are you?
It is so neat to finally reconnect with you. We've enjoyed talking shop a number of different ways, going back 12 months or so. And we've had this conversation to talk about your journey, especially from a sports standpoint, teed up for a while. So it's great to finally make this happen.
Yeah, absolutely. And, 2 months ago, I had to postpone this because a beautiful daughter made her entrance in the world. So all is good. Allison, nice.
How are you? Good to see you.
Good, very good.
And if you wouldn't mind, up to you, share your inventory count for daughters there in the Valentine household.
Inventory count.
Inventory. That's a good way. I'm up to 4.
Wow.
And that'll probably be it for me. But I've hit the grand slam, and my next adventure is probably a houseboat. But we'll see.
Well, great. What a great, if there's any solid excuse for missing the live stream, that's at the top of the list. So,
No
but great to have you here. Enjoyed our pre-show conversation. Allison, I'm looking forward to our conversation with Joe here today. But before we get to sports, and before we even get to let Joe tell us about himself and what he's currently doing, let's say hello to a few other folks. Special guest here, Matt Giddens. Allison, you recognize Matt?
I think I just saw him today, in fact.
So, Matt, great to have you here. Happy New Year to you. Tune in via LinkedIn. Cindy Palmer is with us. Hello via LinkedIn. James Scotland from Australia. He's with the Australian Supply Chain Institute.
All sorts of countries. This is so cool.
It is. Well, sports is that universal. It cuts through all the noise, right? Mm-hmm. And I just hope we don't let these folks down by talking all sports tonight. So this is going to be a different episode.
They're looking forward to it. I'm speaking on behalf of 97% of the audience.
The voice of the community. We need one of those, Allison.
Yes, I am it.
Hello, Martin. Great to have you here. And there's one other. So Sneha, we were curious if she liked baseball or didn't, and she says now she has to. So
Excellent.
It's a good way to look at life, Sneha.
Yes.
All right. So Joe, before Allison takes us into your baseball journey, let's give the good old supply chain professional a tip of the hat, and tell us, what do you do in your current role?
So I'm the senior sales executive for RLG Americas. We are a end-to-end 4PL reverse logistics company. We deal with some of the biggest retailers and e-tailers in the world.
And one of the cool things that we've picked up on our earlier conversations, Allison and Joe, is Joe loves talking returns, reverse logistics, and of course returns in this e-commerce age. It's already important. It's only get more important in terms of how we handle these returns and hopefully reuse the returns as often as possible. We've seen some companies do some pretty cool, innovative things in that regard. But Joe, every day is Valentine's Day. We say that every time you join us on live stream. But you love talking returns, right?
I do. I mean, I always use the case that every return is a business case. Because every one is different from the other. And for me, in this day and age, what COVID has kind of brought to everybody's attention is not being able to go to the store and purchasing it online. And how does that impact the consumer, the retailer or customer, but also how it's affecting the economy and, more importantly, the earth.
Yeah, well put. All right, one more point here, because the consumers are changing their buying behaviors, whether you've always been an e-commerce shopper or you may be new in terms of different things you get via e-commerce. I don't think my mom is with us, and hopefully she don't mind me sharing, but she has always gotten her groceries in person. And, I think as a family, we enjoyed those trips to the grocery store, right? During 2020, she started getting groceries via one of the online providers. And I think for her, it's been one of those things that sticks, and we're seeing other behaviors that are new, preferences that are new that are going to probably be here to stay on a number of different ways e-commerce folks purchase via e-commerce. So all right, we'll save that conversation for another day, because we're going to pick your brain on all things baseball and sports. So Allison, where are we starting?
I've got a list of about 60 questions. Do we have, how long we got? No,
3 days, I think.
3 days. Oh, 3 days until pitchers and catchers report. 36 days from now. This is a marathon podcast. Thanks for joining us here on Supply Chain Now. No, we really, to start us off, can you tell us a little bit about your career from the minor leagues to the majors and kind of maybe right before? I know we could probably have a whole series of shows just on that, but what are some of your favorite aspects of that?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, being a small town boy from Long Island, being drafted kind of was always this dream. And that dream, came about in 1999. I'd spent 1 year at a junior college in Southern Alabama. Don't ask how I got there, because I'm still not sure how I did.
Probably plane.
That's like a My Cousin Vinny. It's like a My Cousin Vinny moment,
yes.
Joe.
Absolutely. It was a My Cousin. Yes, it was fast food was no longer fast food. It was tomorrow. So that was an aspect of culture shock. But 99, I got drafted. Spent a few years in the lower minor leagues. A lot of the stories that I remember are from that time, just because it was, boys out of college or high school and just trying to get to the next level. And then shortly after that, 2003 was when they first broke into the big leagues. Toiled around there for a few years, and then over the next 5 or 6, concluding into 2010, spent a year in Japan, played in Puerto Rico, Mexico, Dominican. If there was a meal, a baseball, and a paycheck, I was there. And so it was a huge part of my life and something I'll never forget. But some of the stories are maybe better offline.
Well, no, even Amanda says she recognizes that growing up in New York to Lower Alabama was a culture shock. That's no doubt. I got family from New York, and I married someone from Georgia, so I see the differences. For sure.
Big time in LA. So quick question. We're going to talk about the big day, Allison, here in a second, but playing in Japan, can you give us a quick differentiator or, compare and contrast? What's one thing that stands out so much differently playing professional baseball in Japan versus here in the States?
It was, structurally the same. It was just what I considered small ball. At the time, you were going to bunt somebody over, you were going to sacrifice your out for the betterment of the team. A lot of analytics at that time prior to what we see here now. But very much the same, maybe just a little bit smaller in stature.
What do you remember from that day that you got called up? What sticks with you?
One, I thought somebody was joking. I had just recently been traded over to Cincinnati with a very good friend of mine from Oakland, and that was literally about a week prior to me getting called up. And it was 8 o'clock in the morning. I had just pitched 2 innings the night before. And I'm thinking, all right, somebody will get the phone. My roommate answers the phone, says it's for you, says it's Mac. I don't know who Mac is. I'm just new to the organization a week. He goes, it's your pitching coach. You pitch from, and I said, oh, I'm so sorry, bye-bye. He goes, don't worry about it. You don't need to know me any longer. You're going to the big leagues. And so I was in Charlotte, and at this point, my phone dropped. My teammate had already been to the big leagues. He's like, you're going. So I said, yeah. He said, okay. Hang up the phone. He said, a traveling secretary will have details for you in a text message or an email shortly. We need to go get you a suit and a real nice suitcase. So thank goodness there was a mall across the street. We went, spent more money than I had or had in me. And so got to the airport, flew across country to LA, to Dodger Stadium. I showed up.
Not Lower Alabama.
No.
Different LA.
Not
different
going
LA.
back there. Showed up 30 minutes past game time. First person to meet me was Ken Griffey Jr. He just struck out, ended inning, and he shook my hand, said, welcome to the team. And 30 minutes after that, I was in the bullpen in Dodger Stadium.
So how much time was in between that phone call and that moment where you were in the bullpen?
I think it was 13 hours.
Holy cow.
13 hours between when I got the phone call to when I was in LA in uniform, maybe making my major league debut, but actually being on a major league roster.
Okay, so not necessarily that you had the time to do this, but who was the first person you called after you got that phone call?
My mother's. Yeah.
Awesome.
So I called them and said, hey, the little boy's dream has come true.
Oh.
I'm heading to LA. We wound up getting them flights. So they had met me there, called my agent, and then I called my, friends and family, through what at that point was a very chaotic text message through how many people.
So do you remember, is there any one point of advice or some reaction that your mom had that she shared with you that will always stick with you? Is there any, and I want to respect the private conversation, but anything you can share?
Though she said, just don't forget it. Don't forget this feeling. Don't forget all the hard work that you did to get to here, but also live in the moment, and something I try to do still to this day.
Love that. All right. So Allison's going to ask you, we're going to change gears on a much lighter note, talking about pranks in a moment, but let's say hello to a few folks in the comments. Let's see here. Peter. Hello, Peter. Cheers all. Great to catch the show. Dinner hour now. You can watch a replay tomorrow. His future son-in-law, the Bucks won. I guess the Bucks played yesterday, right? And he's thrilled beyond belief. So that's a happy household. So Peter, hope this finds you well. Look forward to connecting with you soon. Cindy Palmer is a big fan of Japanese baseball that you were talking about earlier. We talked about returns on the front end because that's part of your expertise now. Azalea says, hoping that the pandemic is going to bring attention to return policies across the board. She just got billed $400 for a broken phone that was damaged in transit. Well, Azalea, my crystal ball has been broken quite a bit, but I would tell you, returns policies are ever evolving, and the pandemic is only speeding that up. So there's good news around the corner. Hopefully in time, maybe to help that phone. Amanda loves your story about the call to mom. I do too. It takes me, Allison, to there's a TV show, or at least the video footage of when Chipper Jones got the call from the hall.
Oh yeah, yeah.
With his family, and that was just such a powerful moment. And I bet it was very, very similar for you, Joe. See, Donna says, "See how important it is to call your mom, Allison."
Saw that coming.
Hey, Bob, great to have you here. Good to chat with you earlier this week. Quick sidebar, everybody that might be listening. So Bob is a U.S. Navy veteran. Is based, lives in the Allentown, Pennsylvania area. He's got a lot of inventory experience. He's looking for his next opportunity. So if you've got, if you're hiring and looking for good practitioners during this in this environment, hey, connect with Bob.
Thank you for your service there, Bob.
You bet, absolutely.
Yes, thank you.
And we got to say hello to my mother-in-law, Val Durden Midkiff, who is watching in the Midkiff estate in the upstate of South Carolina, new home. So great to see you, Val and Fred. All right. So Joe, let's see here. We're going to talk about pranks, Allison.
Yes. Can you tell us, and we won't record this part if that's important.
Oh no, it's already out there. Well, at least I know one of them is, but yeah.
Tell us a little bit about some of the pranks, either you were on the receiving side or otherwise.
So I'll do a 1-in-1. So I actually just told the story today with some of my friends. I had a teammate of mine who really didn't like his cleats all that much. He called his agent and complained. So I think I'd take it to the next level. And grape Kool-Aid, at least the powder, stains quite easily. So it was known if you just sprinkled a little in the cleats, and he didn't realize that after he took his cleats off, his toes would be blue. I ran this trick out for about 2 weeks until I just left a pouch of blue Kool-Aid on his, and he wound up figuring it out. That was probably the longest prank I pulled. I was from New York, so these things came natural to me. The one that I had to partake in was kind of our rookie hazing, which is now seriously frowned upon, but nobody was put in harm's way. In Wrigley Field, we just knocked them out of the playoffs in 2004. And my suit was cut up in pieces, and I had nothing but a Hooters outfit to dress in. Yes. 9 of us had to go through this. We had to sign autographs outside of Wrigley.
Oh boy.
Then we, instead of, and we'll kind of get maybe into the logistics of baseball here, we typically took a bus onto the tarmac, went through security basically on the tarmac, and then went up into our chartered flight. Well, this time they made us go through O'Hare Airport.
Oh no.
Yeah. Drinks couldn't go down quick enough to just sort of either black me out or just subdue the feelings that I was feeling. I then had to serve alcohol drinks on the flight, and about 30 minutes in, I think this is kind of one of those I'll tip my cap to. Ken Griffey Jr. came up to me, goes, "You did a great job. Go, here's a new suit." And they had a custom fitted suit made for me, put it on, and that was that.
Nice.
Well, Joe, I did some Googling before the show, and I wish I had known that story prior to the show, because the only thing I could come up with was some baseball cards. And I'm sure there's some funnier pictures out there, but this is really cool. As a former baseball card enthusiast and football, I did a lot of football cards. To see you on Topps and Donruss, this is really cool. So did you? I told you I was going to nerd out on you a little bit.
Yeah.
So you mentioned meeting King Griffey Jr., a living legend. Just a few 13 hours or so after getting called up. You saw yourself on baseball cards, certainly after you made the majors. I mean, how often did you have to pinch yourself, or was it quick? That shock wore off and it was about competing. Talk about that a bit.
Yeah, I think every day I pinched myself. But once I got to the ball field, it was, okay, it's a job. I got to prepare and do all those things and kind of zone out to just be tunnel vision on, the task at hand. But I never took it for granted. I always said to myself that I'd play this game as long as I possibly can if I still loved it. And I didn't want to leave the game the same way I felt as a kid. So that's when I wound up taking it out. But I always pinch myself. I still pinch myself to think, how is that even possible? And even still to this day, I get some fan mail and I get to show that to my daughters now. And my oldest two get it. My youngest, my 4-year-old says that's not you. That's not you. So she knocks me down a peg, which is fine.
They didn't even have cell phones when you were a kid, Dad.
Right. And so, but yeah, no, it's to see myself on a baseball card at that point, collecting at some age when I was like most boys did. Yeah, it was special.
Oh, that is so cool. So I want to talk about some of those players during the years you played there with the Reds. Real quick, I want to say hello to a few folks. Sneha, I really enjoyed your story about calling your mom. I bet that would be
you like baseball now? I bet she loves baseball now.
that would be, I can only imagine how excited you'd be. Couldn't wait to call your mom and give her the news. So that's awesome. Let's see here. Oh, David is with us too. So David, hope this finds you well. Thanks for joining us on a Sunday night live stream. David is a great, in fact, he is, Allison, you're a humorist. David is a fellow humorist and brings that sense of humor every Monday and Thursday on our live stream. So we get a kick out of that. So David, hope this finds you well. All right. So Joe, you mentioned King Griffey Jr., but you also played, King Griffey for the three folks on the live stream that may not know, Hall of Famer, legendary. He made his biggest mark with the Seattle Mariners, where he played with his dad actually in his first rookie season, I believe. So Hall of Famer, and then he was either traded. I think he was traded to the Reds. Joe, do you remember? Or Allison, y'all remember?
No, he signed. I think it was a trade and sign deal where he was immediately traded and signed like this massive
gotcha.
Contract.
So he played on that 2004 Cincinnati Reds team that you were a part of, along with Barry Larkin, which, if you're a Braves fan, you remember all the times Barry Larkin would torment us. Incredible Hall of Famer, both fielding and hitting, a shortstop for the Reds. So what was it, playing with those two incredible legends and others? Tell us about how special that was.
Yeah, well, Ken Griffey, I think at that point, my age group, you tried to emulate his swing as a kid, and just to see him in person, it was just this larger than life type of persona, but just another stand-up human being. Larkin, same thing, is that you saw this Early's Reds team just kind of run through baseball and make the Braves and other teams' lives pretty miserable. And he was also, a pioneer, one of the first shortstops to do 30-30, which is, 30 home runs, 30 stolen bases. But he was also one of those larger than life type of persona, but he actually spoke and he led by his words and his actions, and he had a true impact on a lot of people's careers and lives.
What having never played professional baseball, if it wasn't obvious. So I've always been fascinated with kind of relationships, off the field, kind of in the clubhouse, where if it's a good night or a good day and you're on a streak and you're competing and, or if it's a bad day when you're down 14 runs in the second inning. What was the culture like in those Reds teams for you? What do those conversations sound like? And was there a jokes? Who was the biggest jokester on the team? Maybe.
Oh, wow. There was a few of them, but I think the biggest jokester on our team at that point was Adam Dunn.
Big country.
Big country. Had to. Yeah, he was kept it light, kept it fun. Was known to do some jokes. But we had a real good, solid core of lead by example type of leaders, and then vocal leaders. A gentleman by the name of Sean Casey, which around baseball was known as the mayor. And he was just one of the nicest human beings you could ever come across, and he still is. And you have a conversation with him, you talk baseball, but then, after one conversation, he remembers your wife's name, he remembers your daughter's or son's name, and knows everything he needs to know about you to connect on a more personal level, because for him, that's how he led. But he was also a jokester too. So it was just that we're playing a kid's game. So grown men in a clubhouse, there was always pranks being pulled. There was always jokes being told. So it was a unique experience.
Awesome. Well, so before I ask, Joe, you've already talked about one incredible leader on the ball club, Barry Larkin. But Allison, what, based on what Joe's already shared, and also being a big baseball fan, like we both are, what's one thing that sticks out, or what's one question that what Joe's sharing might prompt you?
It's really making me think about, my husband and I just had this conversation today, where you have these pedestals you put certain people on in your industry. And when you're young or when you're new to the industry and you put these people on there and then you get to meet them, and, the negative Nancy's out there will say, don't meet your heroes,
Right.
But it's nice to hear, because I've had a really good experience recently with somebody who I kind of used to fangirl about a lot. And now I kind of consider her a peer, and she's amazing. And I'm so glad to know that that person is like that in real life. And it's comforting. It's kind of nice to know that these people out there on the ballpark, on the ball field, that we look at, and Ken Griffey Juniors and everybody else in between, that we can sit there and watch strike out and give him a hard time and get ticked off as a fan. God, why can't he hit? It's not as easy as you go out there and try it. So it's kind of nice to hear that these are regular people, and go meet your heroes. It might do you some good.
Excellent. Love that perspective you just shared, Allison. Let's say hello to a few folks that joined us here. Tevin Taylor, good evening all from Texas. 1/4 inch of snow on the ground. Wow. Apocalypse now. Tevin, hopefully this finds you well. Tevin's part of the FedEx team, which of course is got a big part of the noble mission that's going on. So Tevin, great to have you here. David says, yes, Allison, humorist. Much better than saying I like to make too many jokes.
Same difference.
Yeah, same difference. Matt Giddens says big donkey, not big city. We're talking about Adam Dunn, or big country. So Matt, I think Matt must be as much as
to say we live and breathe baseball in this house is an understatement of the year.
Love it.
Good
and
too.
Well, and talk about hitting the ball a long way. There was a stretch there, if you remember, Allison, where with the Braves, we were hoping we were going to get Adam Dunn at a deadline deal or something. But gosh, man, he could hit. And Casey, by the way, incredible. I think he was hitting like 330, 340 some of those years. AA from Wichita, Kansas, the air capital of the world. AA, great to have you here for this sports edition of Supply Chain Now. And by the way, we're talking with former Major League Baseball pitcher Joe Valentine. All right, so Joe, I picked the team. You could really dive in deep with stats, and baseballreference.com is one of my favorite sites. And I had to kind of pick one team. And the 2004 Cincinnati Reds was the team that you played the most on. I think, let's see here, 66 games and 72 innings pitched. So it was not a cup of coffee. You had guys on there, Jason LaRue, Sean Casey, Barry Larkin, Ryan Friel, Austin Kearns, Willie Mopena, all parts of the offense. And then on the pitching side, Aaron Harang, who later pitched with the Braves, had a really good year with the Braves, part of that team when he was a young age of 26. And then Todd Van Poppel. And so we're going to talk leadership here in a second, but Todd Van Poppel, we're talking in the pre-show. So in the 1990 Braves, they had the first pick in the Major League Baseball draft. And the Braves were really, John Schuerholz was kind of new with the team, and they were all about pitching. And of course, he was the biggest pitcher in that draft, biggest name. Well, the Braves ownership, management, pieced together that Todd Van Poppel did not want to play for the Atlanta Braves, which hadn't quite gone from worst to first. So the Braves, rather than wasting that pick and maybe not being able to sign him, they drafted none other, Allison, who they draft.
Oh, man, not Maddox.
Chipper Jones.
If I throw out a name, I will eventually hit the right one.
Chipper Jones, they drafted him first in the draft. And, of course, that helped change the trajectory for the whole franchise. And like Joe said, for the city, right? Because it 5 years later, they won the first World Series in 1995. And that was Chipper had a big role in that season. So, and you played. So Todd Van Poppel played in 48 games in that 2004 season. Joe, tell us about Todd Van Poppel. What was he like behind the scenes?
Yeah, he was, again, one of those larger than life type of personas. He was just a big man overall, but he was another great human being. Everything that he had been through about being this super prospect, this can't miss guy, and having a great career. But he was a stalwart in our rotation and helped out pitch out of the bullpen. But yeah, just one of those guys that larger than life, but also bigger than life and a great human.
So Matt says, Greg Maddox, really, Allison? We're going to study historic draft results later.
You see, this is what I have to do. So we play trivia every Sunday night with a group of friends, virtual trivia on Zoom. And the first question of every round is sports. And so he and I sit in the same room, him and his computer and me and mine. And almost every sports question I get wrong.
We'll have to work on that.
You're kidding. And that surprises me, Allison, because
I know. Well, because I overthink things. I overthink it. Surely it can't be Chipper Jones. We talked about him in the green room. Why would it be Chipper Jones?
That happens. AA says, hey, happy Sunday evening. No days off for us disciples, supply chain disciples. Good stuff there. And Amanda says, hey, we need to invite to trivia night. Amanda says, so she's signing us up. We'll see.
Deal. I'll send you a link.
All right. So Joe, back to those teams you're playing of and back to leadership. Leadership, if I'm a big sports nerd or supply chain nerd, I'm equally a big leadership nerd. And Allison, I'm gonna say you are one too, because I know you love talking leadership. Joe, you've already mentioned a couple, but who else sticks out? And not just on that 2014, but throughout your journey, your baseball journey, who else comes to mind when you think about folks that you love, leaders that you love playing with or playing for or what have you?
So I think one of the more influential leaders that I had was a manager that I had for a few years in the minor league, was Wally Backman. He just was a baseball man, and really was able to break down the roster person by person and approach them in the manner that person needed to be. And we were all different humans, right? Different beings from all over the world. And he understood how to communicate on a one-on-one level. But he also was probably the best motivator to, when you cross the lines, how to get the best out of you as a person and the team. He's probably one of the bigger ones. But then you have teammates that were leaders in a sense, where they would bring you under their wing, kind of help you understand the game, life, the advantages of it, but also what to expect at the next level. And one of the better human beings I've had the pleasure of calling a friend is Jacob Cruz. And he was a gentleman that really took me under the wing, showed me the ropes, bought me my first, what I consider my big league suit, other than that travel story, because that wasn't a big league suit. That was enough to get me on a flight and look presentable. But yeah, one of those things where, he really took time to show me the ins and outs of the game.
Love that. We all need someone to bring us under the wings, especially when we're new to an industry or an organization or what have you. So bless those folks for sure. Let's talk about the logistics of the game. Here, supply chain now, again, it's all about supply chain and then supply chain. There's so much to talk about. When you think of the logistics behind Major League Baseball or minor league baseball for that matter, what are a couple things that come to your mind that maybe your average fan may not be aware of?
Well, I'll break it down into two segments. Minor leagues, 14-hour bus rides after a 11 o'clock p.m. finish at night don't do anybody justice. And then really pulling up to, a hotel at 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock in the afternoon, trying to get a few hours of sleep in a hotel room that is probably not the cleanest and the most pleasant of the cities, to then trying to go win at baseball as a group. Those were always fun, and some of the buses would always break down. Those were even more fun. But then on the big league side is really not having to worry about logistics. You get done with a game, your stuff is packed up in your bag. Your bag is already on the flight underneath your seat, and there's already uniforms in the next city to where you're going. For us, that was always taken care of logistically. Airport, again, not having to go through the airport, going right on the tarmac, being scanned, wand and make sure that we're all clear, which I always thought was a little odd. But we would be on that tarmac and on our way within probably an hour and a half of game time's end.
Must be nice not to have to worry about logistics, Allison. Basically, what Joe's saying is they were e-commerce consumers, right? Just it showed up when it had to get there, right time.
Yeah.
So I want to hear a little surprise question, because it didn't dawn on me until after we started, and I want to add it, but I want to get both of y'all to respond to this, and if you'd like. We've seen here in the last couple of 12 months or so, different seasons, we've seen some firsts, right? From college football. I think the first Division I female place kicker to suit up and play in a game. And then here, related to baseball, in the last few weeks, we've seen the Boston Red Sox name a female, I think the first ever minor league head coach or manager, breaking the glass ceiling there. What, I'll start with you, Joe. What, any kind, especially as many managers you've rubbed elbows with and being in the game, how good is that for the game?
Well, I think I'm a huge proponent for inclusion and diversity. You may have not played the game, you may have not taught the game at the highest level, but that doesn't necessarily mean you can't connect with the individuals that are trying to compete. For me, I've always been a sounding board for that. So for me, it warms my heart, but kudos, right? That's really can do.
I'm with you, Joe. All right, Allison, your take.
Makes me think about too, I've got a good friend of mine, funny enough, the person that runs those trivia leagues, she was right before COVID hit, working on becoming an umpire for MLB, and then, she was venturing into the minors, and I don't remember which leagues she was with exactly, because I'm really crummy with acronyms, but she was doing a fantastic job, and she was being featured on a lot of these different shows on, first female umpire. And her stories were fascinating, because the dynamics were not, there wasn't really grief with the teams or the managers. That's not where there was pushback. It was audience. It was people out in the stands, and it's it's the guy, it's the dad at the third baseline screaming at the coach for not putting his kid on the mound. It's those kind of people. So it's cool to see that a lot of these women are breaking barriers, because I think that the coaches and the guys on the field are seeing these women in leadership positions as their future. Those are their daughters. Those are their sisters. So there's kind of a cool tie in there. So I see it as a good thing, of course.
Yeah, I think just in any industry, if you can do the job, it shouldn't matter.
Right.
It just shouldn't matter.
Yep. Just get the best of the best. Doesn't matter who it is.
Exactly.
Well said to you both. I appreciate y'all being good sports and playing along with a pop-up question there. I think it's great. And Allison, as you were sharing some of your commentary there, it took me back to the our oldest played several years of softball. And the year right before the pandemic was the year when really sports mixed with social media and in a way that was undeniable. And some of these parents that get on social media and become armchair quarterbacks and let these volunteer coaches have it, giving them what for over nothing. I mean, name call it. it was like the worst in
Yes.
all things athletics. But to your point, Allison, those are folks that ruin it for everyone else. And
Right.
those umpires, I know if Fred Midkiff's watching, some umpires are making $12 a game or something. They're not out there for the paycheck.
Yeah.
They're out there because they love the game, want to
Right.
give back. Right.
Yeah.
You gotta hug on those folks.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. So we're gonna Allison, let's see here. Should we
You want to talk NFL? Let's
do that. Allison, go ahead.
Wait, there's NFL. What's going on?
There's this other league, this other sport that some people like.
Which I love just as much as baseball. So here we go.
All right. So now that we're on playoffs, now we're in that world. Who do you like in Cleveland, Pittsburgh?
I think it's Cleveland's year this year. The last 4 or 5 games, Pittsburgh just didn't look the same. I know Big Ben was banged up a little bit, and they already had it kind of locked up. But I just think Cleveland's got the better team overall. The caveat there is Pittsburgh's experienced,
And Browns are the Browns.
and yeah, unfortunately,
For being honest.
unfortunate, but I just think they edge them out. I'm gonna say on a 27-24.
Wow. Okay.
You're saying Pittsburgh edges out Cleveland, is that right?
I'm sorry, Cleveland edges out Pittsburgh 27.
Okay.
I like that.
I know baseball players are super superstitious. I mean, I know that's a thing.
Yo,
How, on a scale of 1 to 10, how superstitious are Cleveland Browns fans tonight?
they better be.
Are they?
be. I mean, I just remember the years of in Cleveland. If the Browns won a game, the local bars had a refrigerator that they would unlock and give everybody a free beer because they never won. So it was just
those refrigerators stayed locked, is what you're saying.
for
right?
a long time.
And that would have been what the supply chain and management world would have called a loss leader.
Right.
Tying it all together here, folks, because we're about education.
Yes, love that.
Well,
so if Cleveland wins, go ahead, Scott.
No. I was just going to say, Atlanta's had it's more than its fair share of disappointments when it comes to sports. However, that 1995 incredible Braves team beat an equally incredible, especially from an offense standpoint and batting lineup, the 95 Cleveland Indians team.
Yes.
I mean, that lineup was I still can't believe it. I mean,
pitchers were crying to go into that game.
No kidding.
Yeah.
And speaking of adding to the city of Cleveland, the fans, last 30 years or so of misery. But hey, we're not giving that World Series trophy back anytime soon, right, Allison?
No.
You earned it.
And I've got a lot of friends in Cleveland, and they are really good people. But
they are.
Yeah, no, I don't. No.
And hey, it is great to see the Browns back. It's great to see the Buffalo Bills back. We've all been tracking a Jim Kelly story on, man, what a fighter.
It's nice for things to be competitive in different teams. I'm tired of hearing about the same 3 teams over and over. So it's kind of nice for some different stuff to be happening.
I'm with you. And Amanda says, we're not superstitious, just a little stitious. That movie, that's from T Squared, she's yelling in my right ear where that movie is. Put it in the comments, my dear. Please. T Squared, who holds down the fort for us on YouTube, says supply chain management nourishment along with Sunday dinner. Good eating there, literally and metaphorically.
It's good for the soul.
That's right. Good for the soul. Amanda, that's from The Office, the superstitious quote. And Matt is sharing Coastal Plains League.
So yes, so my thank you, Matt. My friend who was the first woman umpire with Coastal Plains League. She's got a very even keeled temperament. Like, you don't rattle Greta, you just don't. And when she said to a group of us initially that this is what she was going to do, we all went, "We can see that."
Love it. Hey, we need those kind of people. I love it. All right, so we all agree it's great to see Cleveland back in. It's been a long time since John Elway led the drive that broke the Cleveland Browns' heart, and I don't think they've been. I think it's been since that year, or really close to it, that they've even been back in contention. I think this is the first playoff game they've had in forever. Did you Allison, did you ask
I was
Joe?
going to ask who, because I've got my bookie is on hold right now. Who's going to win Super Bowl?
I mean, I need a crystal ball, and if I did, I'd be Marty McFly.
All right, if you had $20 to put on, who's winning the Super Bowl?
The Chiefs. I just think overall, they have the best overall talent on offensive, and surprisingly, they're well on the defensive side too. But Pat Mahomes' father was a Major League Baseball player, so I have to ride or die there until somebody beats them. So I say KC.
Right.
We just heard shouting and cheering from Kennesaw, Georgia, in the White household. So Greg White, who made sure I was going to ask you about Pat Mahomes, because I didn't make the connection. Pat Mahomes pitched in the 90s and into the early 2000s, and we all probably saw him in thousands of games, it seems like. I didn't make the connection that he is the quarterback from the Chiefs. Greg's going to kill me. The father. What's that?
Pat Mahomes.
Yes. Yeah, Pat Mahomes, the quarterback for the Chiefs.
Yeah.
I didn't make that connection.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we can check that box, and Greg White
like
can
the secret word on Pee Wee Herman's Playhouse. Like you said, Mahomes.
Oh man, I hadn't thought about Pee Wee's Playhouse in a long time, Allison. Love what you bring to the show.
That's what you need is a secret word on Supply Chain Now.
That's a great idea.
You can't tell anybody ahead of time.
All right, so let's talk about speaking of leadership and speaking of the opposite of leadership, the Eagles here. I think it was last weekend in the final regular season game. Doug Peterson, the coach, won Super Bowl a year or two ago. He pulls out Alabama alum Jalen Hurts late in the game when they're down 3 points to put in a third stringer, Nate Sudfeld, who everybody's heard of and sought after. Now, third stringer, I mean, he's had very few snaps in a 3-point game, Joe. And you, as a Giants fan, that game impacted the Giants' ability to get into the playoffs. Did they tank, or is there any kind of rationale that can remotely make that legit?
Well, I think writing was on the wall that they tanked. But as a competitor, you should have just never left it in somebody else's hands. You had 16 other opportunities to win another ball game, to have that not even be a non-issue. So it's really on the Giants there. But on the flip side, competitiveness, you play every game as it's your last, because you never know when it's going to be. And there are some players on that roster that was their last NFL game. And that's what they'll have to live with, because the coach made a decision most likely everyone in that roster doesn't agree with. Won't publicly say it though.
Man.
But I can.
I love that. Well, it just such an interesting situation. It seems like here in the last few years, regardless of sport, it seems like more and more organizational franchise leaders are, even if they say one thing publicly, it feels like they're tanking for high draft picks. I don't know when that became a thing, but it was a disappointing decision as a sports fan to see that take place in that Eagles game. All right, so switch.
Some of that is due to how much social media and so much of the oversight of leadership is. I mean, 20 years ago, there were people that tanked games in order to, you know what I mean? But now we hang on every word. We analyze tone on, when some of these people are making post-game interviews. I mean, you wonder, is it just a matter of, is it really increased in frequency, or is it just we're noticing it more?
So what you're saying is it's not just these crazy Walton County parents that are lambasting our volunteer softball coach on social media. but
they come out here in Cobb too, if it makes you feel any better.
They're everywhere.
That's right. Alice, that's a great point. That probably, tanking's probably always been a part of the game, just more visible now. That's man, Alice, we have to bring you back.
Doesn't stink any less.
That's true. All right, so just a quick update, folks. Chicago is down 7-3. It's like a baseball score to the Saints in the third quarter. I can't believe that. I had the Saints picked to really put up some points against the Bears. We'll see if that holds up. All right. So we're done with NFL. We're going back to baseball because we like to zigzag here on the sports edition. Supply Chain Nerds Talk Sports with Joe Valentine. So, Allison, question for you. And Joe, same question for you if you want to answer for the Yankees. But Allison, our beloved Atlanta Braves that we loved finally after a couple years there were rebuilding. It was really painful as a fan. Man, we so much to be excited about, right? The young rotation. We signed some arms there. We got a young nucleus of the team. We got Freddie Freeman, which is just starting to stop it with Freddie Freeman and his family. So, but if you're the GM, and you mentioned as we came on, there was 36 or 46 days until they report, which is really exciting.
Yes.
If money was not an issue, let's say Ted Turner's back owning the Braves, ready to sign checks to Greg Maddox's of the world. What's a couple moves that you'd make prior to the 2021 regular season?
Well, and I had a long conversation with Matt about this weekend too. And if I'm the type of person that I love my team. And so, when he starts throwing out names and, we can get rid of so-and-so, I'm like, no, we can't get rid of them. I love them. He's like, this isn't about loving. This is about winning. So I think if cash were no option, and if all we did was needed to stroke the check and get somebody, I'd sign Trevor Bauer in a heartbeat just to get the starting pitcher who's on a free market. And then there's no love lost because we're not trading anybody. And of course, my mother wants to re-sign Ozuna. See, again, my mom and I, we're emotional people with our players. We love our people. And I think a second one would be figuring out how to get a third baseman, somebody like Nolan Arenado, somebody like him, because I love Alex Riley. I do. But as Matt has pointed out many times before, that slump is not whatever he's in right now. But again, I mean, I'm the person who I'm a really bad picker on who's sticking and who's staying, because I'm the one who, when I was a kid and, you got to get rid of 3 stuffed animals. It's like, no, I love them all.
Well, to Joe's point, you don't know this window of opportunity that the Braves have.
Right.
You don't know. It's not going to be like it shouldn't be. The chances are it's not going to be another run where it's 14 straight opportunities to be in the playoffs and win your division all. What I would do would have nothing to do with the roster. What I would do, and if we have any Braves executives listening to this conversation, listen close, get your notepad out. So there's a huge missed opportunity. Truist Park, a name that just rolls off everybody's tongue. Truist Park. Who cares about a bank? That stadium should be named after the one and only Hank Aaron. And that's what we need to do before the 2021 season. So huge missed opportunity, even if you don't want to do it for all the right reasons and what he's done for the franchise and what he's done for the city of Atlanta. Man, that's the change that's got to happen. So we'll see.
Well, what if it were like Hank Aaron Field at Truist Park?
Love it.
Could you pull that?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll take whatever.
For you.
Throw us a bone here as big Hank Aaron fans. I love how involved the franchise does include him and everything. That's really cool. Yeah. All right. So what you want to say? One move you'd make for the Yankees as big Yankees fan, Joe?
Yeah. You just got to sign DJ. I'm sorry. You got to sign him, get him back into the mix, and then let him pick and choose what side of the infield is, whether it's third or second. But you sign him. And then potentially go out and get a free agent starting pitcher, but he's the number one priority. Now that the Mets went out and made a splash, I think it's let's see who's got the bigger paycheck.
Well, we are very envious of the Yankees' wherewithal, aren't we, Allison? But we'll see. Yes.
I am very, very jealous.
Yeah.
Man, we really wish. I wish Arthur Blank. He made a bid for the Braves way back when, and Bud Selig kind of there was some politics I think that went in, and that's how Liberty Media eventually got involved. But we'll see what happens in the years to come. So I love how Arthur Blank is running the Falcons for sure. All right, we already mentioned Donna is a big fan of re-signing Ozuna. Amanda agrees with her. Holly loves the Hank Aaron. Holly, hope this finds you well. Great to have you on the live stream. You and your family doing well. Big fan there of Hank Aaron. Amanda says her number was 44 after Hank Aaron when she played softball. How about that? Hank Aaron Field. I'm with you. David is giving us a quick update. Sports Center here. 14-3.
Should we have a scrolling bar with the score at all times, perhaps?
We could do that. And Amanda, who's producing, by the way, thanks, Amanda, for producing behind the scenes. Let's see if we can't figure out that ticker. That'd be cool. All right. So let's talk about from kidding around to something really serious, which I really admire. And Allison, we've talked about this here before. And I love what you're doing with the Dave Krache Foundation. So tell us more.
So Dave Krache Foundation has been around for about 8 years now. We help local metro Atlanta kids play sports when their families cannot afford the fees. So we're up to about 894 kids helped. Yeah. So we've helped a bunch of kids. We help everybody from a family brings on a foster child and it's an unexpected expense, this kind of thing. We help low income who are going through some significant challenges. We've helped families who are fighting domestic abuse and maybe a parent has escaped that situation and is of course sports as much as anybody on this phone call will attest to should be a priority in life. Sometimes it's not your food, water, and shelter and clothes, so it gets put on the back burner. And this sports and being on the field, it's vital for a lot of kids in a lot of different ways. So we're just really grateful to have all sorts of people who support us and make sure that we can help those kids. And see, Amanda figured out how to get that 14-3 scrolling. That is fantastic.
Well, that's pretty cool. Nice job, my dear. Allison, that I can't say enough awesome things about what you're doing, and I know the family's involved, and you have some supporters. I mean, these 900 kids, you're changing their life, and we can all relate as parents, all the fees associated with playing sports these days, getting those physicals, just fees to play. And, I can't imagine really when this hit my radar, when you shared for the first time, it was a blind spot, huge blind spot, and just thinking about all those kids that wouldn't be able to get away from all the stresses of life to play sports they love, right. And be kids, and what you're doing about it. So you can learn more where at, Allison?
At davekrache.com. And we're anticipating COVID really affecting these groups of folks that right now, if they were already on the cusp of hurting financially, it's really going to hurt once things kind of settle back down and sports ramp back up and people start looking at tapped out savings accounts or a parent still unemployed, things like that. So check us out. We've got a simple application process that just requires a little bit of a communication between a coach or a teacher to help us validate a need of a family. But yeah, definitely shoot us an email. All the information's on our website.
Outstanding. Love that. Great. DaveKrache.com. And you make a great point, because the pandemic is here, it looks like in its second or third wave, maybe, the need for these nonprofits, they don't go away. They don't go hide, while this takes place. So we gotta support them. So love what you do, DaveKrache.com. And I think we've got a link in the show notes in case folks want to check it out. One click is what we're after here. Okay. So let's make sure that our members of our community can connect with both of y'all. So Joe, how can folks not only maybe talk shop about your baseball journey, but talk about what you and the RLG Americas team is doing?
Yeah, you can reach me here on LinkedIn. Search me by Joseph Valentine. It should pop up pretty quickly. And then that's really the only way. I'm not a big social media player. So that is where to find me.
Outstanding. And we've got a link to your LinkedIn profile on the show notes and the Hooters pictures. No, yes. I'm kidding.
I'll share those after offline.
Wow, man, what a prank. All right, so Allison, how can folks connect with you?
Find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there as well. So Allison Giddens, I think I'm under, but you'll see me.
Awesome. And I really admire all that you do. You're kicking off this this internship for high schoolers right now. You're active with women in manufacturing. Of course, you've got the growing nonprofit. I don't know. You must have several clones in your house, Allison, because to keep things moving.
Yeah.
Sleep's overrated. Yeah, you know. All right. Well, to our audience, our listeners, hopefully y'all enjoyed this conversation as much as I have. I told Allison and Joe prior to that I was going to completely nerd out on Joe, and there's so much more there, I'm sure. But I really appreciate Joe Valentine taking time to share his these stories from the special life that most folks, 99.5%, 9% don't have a chance to be a part of. So thanks so much for your time, Joe.
Thank you. This was very cool. It's really cool too to hear somebody who's so self-aware and grateful for that opportunity and for that perspective. That's just a cool thing to observe.
Excellent point, Allison.
I appreciate it.
So we'll have you back. We'll have to. Sports is that universal topic, right? It cuts through all the stress and the noise, and it offers a great departure from all the stresses that 2020 and looks like 2021 is bringing to us. So
ain't any better right now.
But it will be. So to our audience, hey, thanks for joining us here today. To learn more about what we do here at Supply Chain Now, go to supplychainnow.com. You can see a lot of conversations like this, most of them focused on the wide world of end-to-end global supply chain. So, hey, but one last challenge, and Allison and Joe are great examples of this. But on behalf of our entire team here, to do good, give forward, but be the change that's needed. And on that note, we'll see you next time here on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.